evening. I'm political editor Dennis Welch, and this is Politics Unplugged, and we are talking to another candidate for Congressional District 5. This is the district centered in the Far East Valley, currently represented by Matt Salmon, who is retiring at the end of the term. And with us now is Christine Jones. She is running in the Republican primary against Andy Biggs, Justin Olson, and Don Stapley. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You have very much positioned yourself as the outsider in this race. You may be a familiar face for folks who've been watching politics, but you're the outsider this year. Yeah. I want to take a little bit a look at a little bit from an ad you just aired here recently. Let's take a listen.
I'm a conservative business leader. I'm a technology innovator, and I've helped create thousands of jobs. Have you ever created a job? I didn't think so. Typical. I'll work to secure our borders, protect our families from terrorists, and balance our budget.
Wow, that looks like a very Trumpian type of campaign. You're talking about jobs, securing borders, terrorism, these kinds of things. Kind of explain that.
Well, this is the year of the outsider, and so I think we had to get here sooner or later, but this is the year, I think, where people have finally said, you know what, enough politicians. We have enough career politicians. We have to bring some new thinking. We have to have some business focus. We have to remind ourselves that we, in our everyday lives, have a set of goals and metrics against which our performance is measured, and if we don't get things done, we fail and we get fired.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about what you've learned, because if people don't know, you ran for governor a couple of years ago. That didn't work out so well, but what did you learn from that race that you're carrying on into this race, in this congressional race?
A couple of things. One is that if you finish well, you will live to fight another day. And I did, I think. I finished well in that race and came out and supported the governor, who's a Republican, who's doing a great job. I also think that you make lots of relationships, and those relationships are critical in political campaigns. The other thing is, we have a representative form of government, and you ought to be in a place to represent people whose values you share, and this is very much the case for me with the people in the East Valley. And so, you know, whether it's running for governor or running for Congress or running for whatever you have a heart set to do, if you have something in common with the people you're representing, it's really powerful. All
right, let's talk a little bit about the district out there, because obviously you don't live in that district.
Right.
So, you know, in a sense, you can't even vote for yourself in this election. Can people that live out there trust that you're going to be able to represent them, that you're going to know how they feel, what they need in D.C.?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. The fact that you don't have to live in the district, I think, is really smart, because the lines get redrawn every few years. So if you had an expectation for people to live in the district, I guess they'd have to move every few years. But importantly, my husband and I have deep roots in Chandler. He's been teaching in the school district there for the last 15 years, and our church has been there for almost 20 now. And I think what we've seen meeting people and knocking thousands upon thousands of doors in this district over the last number of months is that people are ready for this outsider message, and they're ready for somebody who shares their values. And the street address is much less important to them than whether you're really going to represent them. And the groundswell has been so significant that we feel like we've really connected with the people there.
So what do you say to people who call you a carpetbagger then?
Well, first of all, I ask them if they actually know what the term means. And then we talk about really the critical issues here, which are the fact that we can't wait any longer to secure the border and defeat ISIS and balance the budget. And we have to have some different thinking in Washington. We have to get back to the citizen representation upon which this entire democracy was founded.
Now, speaking of you know, some different thinking out there, we're taping now a day after Hillary Clinton just gave her speech at the DNC.
Yeah.
She is the first woman ever to win and accept the nomination for a major political party. As a woman, what did you think about the events that have transpired this week?
I'm very conflicted about it, because I can barely think of anybody who would be less appropriate to be the president right now than Hillary Clinton. This is a great victory for women, of course, but I won't be voting for Hillary, not because she's a woman and not because she's a woman, just because I don't think she should be the president. I understand that there were women in that room who felt a great sense of satisfaction. But I think in Arizona, we've been paving the way on this for a long time. We had a string of governors consecutively that were women. We kind of went past this a long time ago here in this state.
This is kind of the ultimate, in politics, the ultimate glass ceiling, though, wasn't it?
It was, and it still will be, because I don't think in November she's going to win.
Oh, you're predicting a Trump victory. Where are you with Mr. Trump? Do you support him? I know a lot of other politicians, we can look at the governor, we can look at the state senators here in Arizona, not really embracing this guy. In the case of Jeff Flake, he has fully distanced himself and been a critic, but with Senator McCain, the governor, they're saying they support the nominee. Are you saying that you're all in on Donald Trump?
I said from day one I would support the Republican nominee because I'm not a Hillary Clinton fan, and I think it's really important that we not elect her. But I also think that if you're a Republican and you share values, then you have to support the nominee. So I am all in. And in this particular situation, I have offered up my help to the campaign. I would have helped whoever the nominee was, but I'm certainly going to help him because I think, just like in my race, people are ready for this outsider, the business person.
Now, you're saying that Hillary Clinton isn't qualified to be commander-in-chief, but you took a lot of heat in that governor's race for statements that you had said about Mrs. Clinton in the past, in particular that you had admired her. A lot of people are going to look at this and go, she's just being political, she's just saying what she needs to say to win some votes, and maybe don't think you're very genuine about that statement.
Well, this is what politicians do, Dennis. You know, you've been working with them for a long time. They like to take little bits and pieces of sentences and take them out of context and reorder the words and try to make it seem like you said something you didn't. I think the phrase you're referring to specifically was me talking about Hillary Clinton as compared to John Kerry when he was becoming Secretary of State. Because even as bad as she is compared to Kerry, she would have been better. I think that was the point I was making in that article I wrote. But this is what politicians do, and it's why people are sick, and they're saying enough of the politicians. Enough. We're just ready for some regular guys to go and get some stuff done, and that's what I intend to do.
Now, specifically when you're talking about, you know, you're fully endorsing Mr. Trump, you're fully behind him. What about some of his rhetoric? But what about his plan to build a wall with Mexico? Do you support that, and do you think it's feasible to have Mexico pay for it?
I've said, and I'm well on the record saying, I don't think we need the Great Wall of Mexico. What I do think we need is to finish the wall in strategic locations where trafficking is happening, and we know it's happening. There are many miles of our border that we don't need to put a wall because they're untraversable by humans, right? There's either a river or there are mountains or hundreds of miles of desert. But there are places where we do need to finish that wall, but we need to supplement it with troops, and we need to supplement it with technology. And I think more so than rhetoric, this is a stark contrast between business people and politicians. Business people know how to negotiate deals to get the other side to do what they want. Will Mexico come and write a check for hundreds of millions of dollars? Probably not. Is there a way that we can negotiate into trade deals to get them to pay for it another way? Of course. That's what we do in business.
And what did you think last week? Let's go back to that Republican convention. A lot of people are saying it was very negative. I watched it, obviously, that final night in particular, and Mr. Trump's speech, and it was a negative speech. Reagan talked about morning in America, and a lot of people are saying that Trump is talking about midnight in America. Are you bullish on America right now? Do you think it is not great as it used to be?
Here's what I think. I think America's best days are ahead of us, and I think Donald Trump agrees with that. And to reduce his speech, which I think went on more than an hour, to a soundbite is really not fair to him. Neither is it fair to any politician to reduce their entire policy platform to a 7-second soundbite. What I know is that he's a guy that likes to get stuff done. He likes to build things, and he likes to put good teams together. And I really think that when he becomes the president, that's what he's going to do.
So if you are able to win this seat and go on to Congress, you've talked about, we just saw that ad a few minutes ago about, cutting spending and whatnot. Be specific here. What programs are you looking at and targeting for budget cuts?
Well, one of the things I know, my husband's a career military officer, and so we've watched spending going on for a long time. There's a lot of waste in government spending. The low-hanging fruit, the places that I think we should hit first, is where you have duplications of spending. And it's in the military, and it's in the Department of Education and Justice and Commerce and all of the other places. The duplication and the spending that happens right at the end of the fiscal year, because we refuse to do zero-based budgeting, is the first place I think we should attack. But then we have to say to the Congress, you got to have a budget, guys. You haven't had one of these in decades, right? Or at least maybe almost a decade. It's time for us to get a budget. It's time for us to balance it.
Now, let's say that Hillary Clinton was able to win the presidency and defy your predictions here.
All right.
Are you able to, would you be able to work with a Democratic president and be able to compromise to get legislation through?
Of course,
because a lot of people in your party have said that the party has compromised way too much. People like Ted Cruz. So where are you on that?
Well, here's how I've been successful in the past, is you can push forward a conservative agenda if you find things about which people agree. And I've done it before with people from the left and people from the right, and that requires you to compromise, but not on critical issues that would compromise your integrity.
What are some issues in some areas that there are areas that compromise? Because I think, a lot of people, there are, like, you're not, two parties aren't going to compromise on, say, big litmus test issues like abortion or something like that, but there are other areas that you have some overlapping interests that you could compromise. What are some of the areas you see that would fit that bill?
One of the places that I've been able to do it in the past is things that help to protect kids or to help to protect seniors or provide funding, which costs money, for things like crimes against children task forces. The things that most of us agree, which is about 90% of the issues, those things are much easier to get compromise on than overwhelming, sweeping reform, which almost never works.
Okay, and what is your top issue going to Congress? What are you going to be focusing in on once you get there?
Well, like I say, I
think... If you get there.
When. Let's go with when. I think we have to get the budget balance. We have to be fiscally responsible. We are going to have a $20 trillion debt by the time January comes, which is when my term would start. We have to be responsible about that. Apart from that, I'll just add quickly, one area of expertise I bring that doesn't exist so much in Congress right now is around technology policy, and that's a passion of mine as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for stopping by. But unfortunately, we're out of time. We're going to have to take a quick break. But we do have lots more to come here on Politics Unplugged, including news from the Democratic National Convention, where Donald Trump might not have been invited, but he certainly took center stage.
And then there's Donald Trump. Don't boo. Vote.
I'm a New Yorker, and I know a con when I see one.
Everything the Democrats say is wrong with Trump and right with Hillary. Still ahead on Politics Unplugged.
She's about to marry a stranger.
There's a criminal on the other end of this.
And now cops show up at her door.
You think that your mother is an accomplice to a crime?
On the next Dr. Phil, Monday at 3 on 3TV. Your 9 and 10 o'clock newscasts, now 7 nights a week. Get Arizona's fastest growing late newscasts now on Saturday and Sunday nights, delivering more of the stories that matter to all Arizona families. 3TV at 9 and 10, now on weekends.
Howdy, folks. I'm Tex Earnhardt with Earnhardt Chevrolet. We are so excited about our new Earnhardt Chevrolet store. During our grand opening, Zero Down delivers. 0 payments for 90 days. 0 chances our prices can be beat. 0 chances you'll find a better trade value. We need your trade and we'll pay you top dollar. Remember this, if you don't try us, we both lose money. Stop in and see us at Earnhardt Chevrolet, and that ain't no bull.
You paid too much for those glasses.
Who?
You. Designer frames? Well, you should have gone to America's Best. They're having a sale on stylish new glasses from British designer brand Karen Millen. From now until August 6th, get 2 pairs and a free exam for just $99.95. At that price, they're flying off the shelves. That's owl humor. The Karen Millen sales event, it's not just a better deal, it's America's best. Hurry, sale ends soon.
Celeste. We want to return our house. It's a lemon.
But it's got those vaulted ceilings.
The internet is really slow. We can't get anything done.
And I sell dollhouse furniture online.
It's her hobby.
It's a business.
Oh, you must have CenturyLink. Just get Cox. They have the same top speeds everywhere.
Everyone deserves fast.
We'll keep it.
Bundles including Cox high-speed internet start at just $99.99 a month. $100 prepaid card included.
It's time to free yourself from the old way of buying and selling cars. Introducing BP, the radical new way to buy and sell cars all online. Carefully inspected, guaranteed, and delivered right to you. If you never have to step foot on a dealership lot again, neither should they. BP.com. 0 to happy.
Welcome back to Politics Unplugged. It is now time to talk it out with our partners from First Strategic. And with us today, Steve Roman, Barry Dill, thanks a lot for joining us. Now, we've got a lot to talk about today, but I do want to start with that CD5 race. You just saw Christine Jones here. Now, does she have the momentum right now to go ahead and pull this thing out?
From a polling standpoint, she definitely has the momentum, and I think from a money standpoint, she has the momentum. We still have further to go into the race. But if you had to pick somebody who's leading at this point, I would say she would be.
And let's look at that this poll now. This was from last week. It shows Christine Jones with 26%, Andy Biggs 19%, Don Stapley 15%, and Justin Olson at 9%. Still 31% undecided voters out there. Now this, according to that poll, that Andy Biggs was the only candidate who saw his numbers decline from the previous poll. What's going on here, Barry? Is this a case where maybe Mr. Biggs is running an old school campaign in a different atmosphere?
I think that's a big part of it. I think that the Jones campaign is really on a roll, as evidenced by the poll, but it's just the feeling and the sense you get. Her TV ads are like the best political TV on the air right now, and I mean, it's very refreshing, it's very upbeat, and I think the other guys are going to have a hard time closing the deal.
Now, I want to mention we've invited Mr. Biggs to come on this show, and he has declined. But I also want to point out that it's really interesting you brought up the ads from the Jones campaign. Very different from the ads that we saw coming out of Andy Biggs. But the same day that Mrs. Jones released that new ad, there was an ad that came out with him that featured Matt Salmon. Now, that seems in a year of the outsider candidate, the anti-establishment, that might not be a good move.
I think that Christine Jones has the personality in the race, and the other candidates at this point don't, and that's shown through in the ads. We'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I'm not calling a race at this point, but there's some time to go. But if you take a look at where someone is right now and the fact that they have more money, I would say that they have a leg up.
Also, well, let's move on here. Another big story in Arizona here this past week is that the Arizona State Treasurer, Jeff DeWitt, got a big promotion with the Trump campaign. He was named as the Chief Operating Officer of the national campaign. Now, he had been working as the state campaign manager. Now, DeWitt calls it, Trump calls DeWitt an outstanding leader. Now, are you surprised by this promotion here, and what does it mean for the state?
Well, first of all, I've never heard of a COO of a political campaign, so I don't know exactly what all that entails.
I am told that he's dealing with budget and logistics, specifically with the expenditure side, because...
Okay, well, that is a 28-hour-a-day job, and it seems fairly impossible that he could that he could do his job as state treasurer and perform this function, if that's the case, at the same time, particularly while he's being paid by the taxpayers of the state of Arizona for $70,000. So my suggestion is that he ought to do one or the other, not both.
It sounds like, Steve, it sounds like maybe he should forego his salary right now while he's going out and doing this, right?
Well, then he'd be foregoing all salary, because what I don't understand is for a job that's supposedly that big, meaning chief operating officer of a campaign, and doing it as a volunteer, that's pretty unusual from that standpoint. So I'm wondering if there's less there than actually meets the eye. I just don't know. I don't know that. Maybe you do. But how much time is going to be involved and what's going to be involved, that's an unknown.
Because let's be real about what a national election is for president. You've got 50 different elections. You've got 50 different places where you have to oversee budgets, you have to oversee personnel, you have to oversee. This is a huge job. I mean, this is a $500,000 job in the private sector, probably. And so I don't know whether there's enough time in the day for him to serve his function as the state treasurer and also be the COO of a national campaign.
But going back, it's also usually a job that's been in place for a year or more in advance of the place that we are right now. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe they're just getting their legs as far as putting that together. It just seems to me there's less here than meets the eye.
All right, but we're going to have to take a, we're going to be talking a little bit more about that on the other side of this, but I do want to remind some people that in August 1st is the deadline to register if you want to vote in the primary election. Now, if you're in Maricopa County, you can go to maricopa.vote. You can also register at Service, Arizona, but again, the deadline tomorrow is August 1st, and we have lots more to talk about on Politics Unplugged. And we have highlights from the Democratic National Convention, but first, the convention got off to a contentious start, all thanks to some hacked emails. Convention chaos. Democratic delegates shouting down the party chairwoman after thousands of leaked emails questioned whether the party tried to undermine Bernie Sanders during the primary election. That same document dump also shows top Democrats politicizing a lawsuit over Arizona's voting fiasco back in March. One email reading, "We're fleshing out the next stage of our Arizona lawsuit earned media plan." Another email shows plans to use the botched election here to help Democratic Senate candidate Ann Kirkpatrick raise the profile in her campaign.
This is very embarrassing for the Democratic Party, but it's not surprising to those of us in the industry. This is a cynical business.
Republican consultant Stan Barnes explaining that all political parties play these types of games. Still, that didn't stop the chairman of the Arizona Republican Party from saying this. While I can't say I'm surprised that Democrats would abuse the legal process for purely political gains, it is remarkable how brazen they are about it.
My guess is, on the Republican side of the aisle, they're probably scrubbing their delete files right now.
Maggie Clark, you've just won $1 million. Let's go inside.
No.
The world is yours, Maggie. Let's go in.
I just mopped.
It's your day, Maggie. Let's go inside.
I'm not Maggie.
Congratulations, Maggie!
Embarrassed by your furniture? American Furniture Warehouse is your one-stop shop for all your back-to-school furniture needs. We carry a large variety of bedroom furniture, mattresses, storage units, and ready-to-assemble pieces to keep your budget in check during our back-to-school event going on right now.
I see the uncertainty in people's eyes, but that only fuels me more. For me, it's more than a job, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to give you a healthy mouth.
You know, we've got a lot in common.
Thanks, Danica.
Right here.
Aspen Dental wants you to make a pit stop for our grand opening with free exams and x-rays for patients without insurance. Call 1-800-ASPEN-DENTAL because your mouth is our mission.
Jeep Mania is back at Sullivan Motor Company. Sullivan has the Valley's largest selection of Jeeps. There's no need to shop anywhere else. Hard tops, soft tops, lifted, custom wheels, bumpers, lights, and winches. We got it all. Dozens to choose from. Plus a huge selection of cars, trucks, SUVs, diesels, 4x4s, sports cars, minivans, and crossovers. Over 600 vehicles in stock. And $3,000 minimum for your trade. That's Jeep Mania. Jeep Mania. Only at Sullivan Motor Company. 1515 West Broadway in Mesa.
Thanks for letting us come into your home each week. We pray for you, and we're believing that you're going to see God's goodness in amazing ways. Stand still, and you'll see God deliver you. When you remain at rest, Almighty God fights your battles. Everybody around you is going to have no doubt the God you serve is an awesome God. I'll promise you this, every time you turn us on, we're going to try to inspire you, to challenge you, to help you become all God's created you to be.
Family is more than a last name. It's those who support you when times get tough. And for 3TV, family is at the center of what we do. That's why we're doing more stories about the things that really matter to you. Landing a great job, keeping more of what we earn, and living a confident, positive life, even in uncertain times. Because that's what families do. 3TV, Arizona's family.
Welcome back to Politics Unplugged and more from the convention trails. We look at the Democratic National Convention this week. But first, I want to go back to a question I didn't get to in the last segment. We're hearing now that Sheriff Joe Arpaio has made some serious ad buys here in the Valley. I want to talk to you, like, why the timing of this now, and what does he have to accomplish with these first ads that he's going to be rolling out?
Well, I think, first of all, it's probably smart to buy a lot of time now when it's available, because it's gonna get very full. The TV schedules will get very full. But I think it's also a fear factor that the sheriff and his campaign team know that he's in trouble this election cycle, and he's running against someone who ran against him before, who still has some carryover name ID.
And where does he have to start? You've been in PR for a long time. Where does he have to start with this campaign? What is that first message out the gate? He's got to get across to the voters.
Well, I think Barry's right. The numbers are tighter, and he's concerned. And what he is dealing with right now is that he's got years and years and years of all types of publicity that's been going on, and clearly we all know there's been a lot of things going on from a lawsuit perspective and court perspective that he's got to deal with. I would assume part of that would be dealing with that, but I would also make an assumption that he's getting prepared to position his candidates and to do things to show his perspective on what his candidates are, and that means you're going to see some negative ads as well. I would assume that's something he's preparing for.
All right, now let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about those DNC, the hack of all those emails out there. Is this something that's going to make a difference with voters this year? After all, it's another email scandal. I mean, Hillary knows all about that too well, probably.
Well, a couple things. Hillary had absolutely nothing to do. This was the Democratic National Committee. Hillary had nothing to do with the hack at the DNC. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was Obama's DNC director, not Hillary Clinton's director.
Yeah, but a lot of people are looking back at some of the decisions that were made, and they're looking at this going, you know, when the debates were held on weekends, and certain decisions were made that clearly would have benefited Clinton.
But it's just a bogus argument. She got over 2 million more votes than did Bernie Sanders. She got 8% more delegates. To think that to suggest that it somehow was rigged against him is just wrong.
Hold on. Now, Donald Trump added another element into this whole thing when he was saying that after it was revealed that the Russians may have played a role in this, and he actually appealed to the Russians for some help in unearthing some of Hillary Clinton's 30,000 missing emails from that. What do you think about this?
I'm going to come to that in 2 seconds. It is impossible to say that Hillary had nothing to do with what the DNC was doing or knowing.
It's not impossible.
Because you know good and well, based on how that campaign was run, that clearly she had her finger on the scales in terms of what was going on. That said, I don't think it's that big of a deal. That said, I don't think it's that big of a deal. With regards to...
I'm sure there's no collusion in politics.
With regards to what was going on with Trump, I think he was brilliant from a standpoint of bringing himself into the argument again when he stood up there and had his press conference. I will say, although I think he was being coy, he was being funny, but I don't think it was the best thing to say when he said the Russians should take care of it.
Okay, now we do have to move on. Obviously, some big history was made last week with Hillary Clinton becoming the first woman to accept the nomination of the Democratic Party or any major party here in America. I want to take a listen to a little bit of what she had to say at the convention.
Now America is once again at a moment of reckoning. Powerful forces are threatening to pull us apart. Bonds of trust and respect are fraying. Don't believe anyone who says, I alone can fix it. Yes, those were actually Donald Trump's words in Cleveland. And they should set off alarm bells for all of us. I will be a president for Democrats, Republicans, independents, for the struggling, the striving, the successful, for all those who vote for me and for those who don't, for all Americans together.
Now, did she do what she had to do, and that is unite a party? The party, obviously, a lot of people disappointed that Bernie Sanders didn't get the nomination. Was Hillary Clinton able to bring them all together?
But at the end of the day, yes, the Democrats are coalesced supremely around Hillary Clinton. What matters is how many of the never Trump Republicans and never Trump independents maybe were swayed as well.
We've got about 20 seconds left. Who had the better convention, Steve, the Republicans or the Democrats?
All in all, I would say the Democrats had a slightly better convention, but I think both conventions worked well. They were both campaigning to the independents base, and they want to set their base, and then they want to get the independents in those swing states. That's what counts for them, and that's how it was tailored.
All right, that's all the time we have tonight for Politics Unplugged. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Good night.